Yes. All right, let's talk about filmmaking. So I'm going to talk to you about filmmaking through Panasonic Lumix. Like she said, I've been an ambassador for over 5 years, and I've actually used Panasonic's gear as a filmmaker for over 15 years myself. And then, over the years, I've made a relationship with Panasonic because it's gear that I love, I trust, and I use all the time for really successful professional filmmaking. And that's why I became an ambassador for their products. So I'm going to talk to you about a lot of their products, and then we're going to talk about some really cool composition and framing things about how to make better films. I'm going to start off talking to you not about our flagship cinema camera, the Panasonic S1H, that has dual native ISO and incredible 14.5 stop dynamic range. I'm not going to talk about that at all. I am not going to talk to you about the GH6. This is the Panasonic GH6 that is a micro four thirds camera that's got micro four thirds cameras, lenses that are half the weight of full frame lenses, and has itself dual native ISO and all kinds of 7.5 stop internal stabilizers and a fan on there that can make sure you can record at super high bit rates for an unlimited amount of time. Not going to talk about that. We're not going to discuss that at all. And we are also not going to talk about the S5 Mark II, which just came out 3 months ago and has a ridiculous amount of cinema built into a really, really small form factor at an industry-leading price. Gerald Undone, who's a YouTuber who's totally independent of Panasonic, calls this the greatest value camera on the market. We're not going to talk about that. No. We are going to talk for a minute about the Panasonic G95. And the reason we're going to talk about the G95 is it has awesome capability for photo and video. And I feel like I'm talking to a group of people who, like a lot of students are getting into filmmaking and getting into photography and need something that is an entry-level product that gives professional results. And that's exactly what this G95 is. So we're going to just talk for a few seconds about the top features. It has a 20 megapixel sensor. It shoots in 4K 30 frames, and it has variable frame rate, which means you can shoot in slow-mo up to 4K 120 frames a second. That is super, super cool 4K at that frame rate. It also has the internal in-body stabilizer. So there was a bunch of students that just came through, and I talked to a really good number of them about what's different about Panasonic. Why should you choose this over another brand? Well, it's really the filmmaking and photo capabilities and the internal stabilizer that we have. Nobody in the industry has an internal stabilizer like Panasonic. Every single one of these cameras I just mentioned has an industry-leading internal stabilizer for their price point, right? So that means that I literally can pop this camera off. You can kind of shake it around, but the sensor inside is on a gimbal and its sensor doesn't move. So that it stabilizes that image so well, better than any other brand in the market. That's why Panasonic Lumix has been such a great leader in filmmaking at a prosumer level, if that makes sense. We can get in on the ground floor, learn how to make films, and then slowly graduate from one product to another. Well, this is where we start. And this camera, the G95, has got 5-axis dual in-body stabilizer, as good as any other camera in our full line all the way up, right? It also has V-Log internal. V-Log is a flattened color profile that allows you to get a better dynamic range out of your image. And it comes built in. Now you have to color grade a V-Log image, which means you color grade it like the Matrix or a teal and orange or whatever your formula is that you want to make your film look the way you want your film to look. But V-Log gives you that opportunity to shoot a flat image and then color grade it how you want. Most camera brands charge extra for that or don't come with that. Certainly not at this price point. That's a teaser. We'll get there in a second. It also comes with a kit lens that's 12 to 60 millimeter kit lens. And then it also comes with an audio jack, so I can put a microphone like this, a wireless mic. I can put a receiver on the other end. and have really pro audio inside this camera. And then finally, it's got 422 real-time output over HDMI, which means I can live stream with this camera. So you've got a pro 20 megapixel sensor. You've got great video capabilities with 4K 30p at really good frame rates. You've got an internal stabilizer. You've got V-Log. You've got a kit lens, a 12 to 60 lens that gives you really good range. You've got an internal, like a jack that you can put audio to your films. And then you've got this output over HDMI that gives you live streaming capabilities. Well, that is ridiculous. How much does this cost? For students, Nelson Photo is giving it for $665. For under $700, you can have a really pro entry-level camera that can get you into filmmaking like a professional right away. Okay, I needed to get that off my chest. Nelson Photo is awesome. If you have any questions about any of the camera gear I'm about to explain or filmmaking, Nelson Photo can help you. They're offering 5 to 10% off of any accessories for students. And then obviously they have these ridiculous deals like $665 for this G95. And they're actually doing $1,000 off for students on the GH6, which is the super pro level camera. It's around $1,200 to $1,400 list price. Like final price with the $1,000 off. Okay, that's awesome. Now let's talk about filmmaking, framing, okay? When we're thinking about, we're gonna talk a lot about framing, composition, and why Hollywood films do what they do. Like, why does it matter? And why should I care? And we're gonna talk about it. So when we're framing something, we wanna frame something, it's always the rule of thirds, right? So you see the screen up there, we've got the guy in the rule of thirds, he's right in the middle. Well, the main focus in the rule of thirds is these 4 action points. And you're gonna watch, like you need to watch your Netflix movies, you need to watch your, start streaming your stuff, your favorite movies from your favorite directors, and you're gonna start to notice that a lot of stuff happens in these locations in the frame, right? Now we've put this character right in the center. Okay, that's great. One thing that some people do, if you're gonna put him off center, you don't wanna put him all the way over here. You're gonna give too much negative space over here. You don't want him over here. Sometimes people will do an interview and they put him over here and there's too much room over there. You'd wanna hit him right on the thirds, right? You put him here looking this way, or you put him here looking that way. And that's gonna give, our eyes are immediately drawn to these 4 action points in a frame. You look at this image and it's a stunning cinematic image. And how did the cinematographer do? Well, he hit him almost perfectly in that little bottom left 4 point right there, right? It's a beautiful image and we're drawn to it. I mean, you look at this image and immediately, all of us, we see the man in the image, even though he's tiny. We see him, like, what's there? What's in that spot? It's because we're just drawn to that spot in the image. Same thing with the classic movie Up from Pixar. That is not an accident. They put things in the right spot, the right time. Framing is always intentional in filmmaking. Look at these. I mean, I'm going to show you a bunch of little images here. This is not an accident that is on the exact third. That horizon is on the money on that third. That's a really beautifully framed shot. Again, action points, right? Like these are specific, these are intentional, and they're beautiful. And you're gonna watch films, like we watch films, and what's funny is that we're all great critics. Every single one of us, we might not be great filmmakers, we're learning, right? We're all trying to get better and better. But how do we get better and better? It's by not just being a great critic, because we all look at it, and if this lady, if she was here, it might just look weird, a little off to us, and we wouldn't necessarily know why. If she was here, it would definitely seem weird, but when she's right there, it's just aesthetically pleasing to us. Okay, so that's framing in the rule of thirds. Let's talk about symmetry. Great cinematographers use great symmetry, right? You can't be lazy in your framing and your shot composition. You need to be intentional. These we hit right on the rule of thirds and we hit right on those action points for the spots we want. It's not just their faces. Obviously, it's the faces, but look at what they're holding and look at the symmetry of it. And it's just, it's a clean, great feel. And we're going to talk about breaking rules in a minute, which breaking rules is just as important, but we break rules for a reason. We don't break rules because we're bad cinematographers. And that's the problem, is a lot of amateur filmmakers will break rules and be like, well, I'm being an artist. No, you're being amateurish. So be specific and learn the rules, follow the rules, and then when you break them on purpose in order to evoke a specific reaction from your audience. So this is a Wes Anderson film. Wes Anderson is classic with his framing, and he creates frames that literally any frame of a Wes Anderson film, I challenge you to do this, go to a Netflix, go to an HBO Max, whatever, and just freeze any frame of a Wes Anderson film. I bet it's a picture you could put on a wall. That is what he tries to do in every one of his films, is make every frame of his film a photo you could pull out and put on your wall, and it'd be a pretty picture. Because his symmetry is perfect, and he creates frames and he lets his action move inside the frames a lot. But he's created this great frame with all this great detail and background. Like, don't look at the people, look at what's in the background. It's so well decorated. It's got such character and culture. And then he places his actors in the right spot, perfectly symmetrical in the frame. And then he creates a great foreground with images right in front here. And look at these tips of this is right on that lower third right there. The eyeballs are right on that upper third, and that's perfectly symmetrical. It's great composition. Shot composition. Wow, look at that. I mean, it's perfectly, and you've got guides in your cameras. Like every Panasonic camera has great guides. It has those exact thirds. You can make sure that you're on the money on your composition. But we miss as filmmakers all the time. That doesn't mean we throw it away. It means in post, we're specific about, oh, let me correct that image. I can zoom in a little. And when we're shooting in high resolution 4K, which you can with the GH6, you can with the S5 Mark II, and you can with that G95, you can shoot in 4K 30 frames a second or 24 frames a second. And then you can crop in and reframe in post and not lose any resolution at all. So perfectly symmetrical. Let's talk next about leading lines. Okay, this is one of my favorite things because this is something that is really hard to accomplish, but when you do, you're about to see some shots from some films that just are stunning. I mean, the leading lines in a frame point to where we're supposed to look. So it's a basic concept, but filmmaking is a director's medium, right? As a director, I get to choose where the actors look. They say theater is an actor's medium because there's a theater stage and we're in the audience, and the actors move around on the stage and we can decide wherever we want to look, but the actors are drawing our attention. But in a film, no. The director draws your attention. Well, how do I do that? I do that with leading lines. And all these lines are pointing to the middle, which is pointing down the road, which is telling us the story that he is driving off into the sunset. And I don't feel good about it. I don't know about you, but it definitely seems chaotic, uneasy, and dangerous. I don't know. It's telling us things and we love it. So this is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, this film, and he is walking this way and the leading lines are telling us exactly that. But these buildings are pointing to the middle because in this shot, he actually is only going to walk to here, but it's telling us, you see the dimension in it. You see how it's pointing to the center of the frame, but then he's walking along a line that is telling us exactly where he's going, right? Beautiful. Leading lines. You see these leading lines are pointing right towards our actor, right towards where we want to look. Obviously, his focus, the director and the cinematographer have chosen focus So they're dialing in the focus and they're blurring out the back. So this is called depth of field, obviously, right? Depth of field means that our subject in the foreground is in focus and the subject behind is blurry. And you wanna get a really kind of like a fast lens in order to accomplish that, a 1.7 lens, a 1.4, a 1.2. Those lenses can be expensive, which is why you spend $665 on your camera body. You've got more money to spend on a beautiful, fast lens. They give you really, really nice blur like this, right? So again, though, like a lot of cinematographers might just show up at the train track and just shoot him straight on and not think about the fact that these train track leading lines are pointing right to the character. Like, use the leading lines when you're deciding how to compose your shots. All right, I think we're about to break the rules. Oh no, we're gonna talk about depth first. We'll break the rules next. So this is depth. Anytime you can have depth in your shot, it's gonna be more interesting. So you don't want to create so much depth that it distracts from the background, but you've got all these leading lines leading right to what's happening here, where this guy is about to do something really bad to this guy. But basically what we've got is we have depth to it. It's really a beautifully composed shot. And look, this is a scene that we see in movies all the time, right? It's like the interrogation scene. It's in a basement. It's like they're gonna beat the guy up and ask him all these questions. How interesting is it to take that same exact scene that on the page probably said, Joe beats up James, and that's it, and tries to ask him, get the stuff out of him that we need to get out of him, right? But this cinematographer, this director, decided to put it on a train yard and add depth to it to create this gorgeous shot. It just makes it so much more interesting than just having it in a basement, right? Here we are. So this is beautiful depth in this shot, because this is the top of a like a big, huge battleship. And you've got the guy up here. Obviously something's going on with him, but you have so much depth in this shot. I wish I could show you the video of it. They're working, everyone's moving and working at the same time. There's so many layers to this shot. It's just so interesting. And then obviously we have the ocean moving down below it. So you have so much 3D space. And that's something that we need to think about in filmmaking all the time, is how do I have different levels of 3D space? Because that's gonna make my image come alive. A photo on a wall, it's two-dimensional. It looks flat. But when things are moving, like the water is moving at a different rate of speed than the workers who are on that bottom deck, and then you have actually this next level here where you have this level of people working at a different 3D space, and then we have our actor in agony in the foreground that is just, obviously the story is going to be what's happening to this actor in this moment, but man, they've created so much depth in this shot, right? So cool. Okay. Come on, let me break the rules, please. Let's see. Do they let me break the rules yet? No! Frame within a frame. All right, we're gonna talk about this really quick. So another cool convention in filmmaking is to create a frame within the frame, right? So we obviously have our widescreen, like 16 by 9, or in filmmaking, lots of times on a cinema screen, it'll be 2:3:5:1. So your aspect ratio matters, right? What you choose. Do I want it 16 by 9 is a TV we have at home, but in the movie theater, we do it really wide. Sometimes it's 1:8:5:1, sometimes it's 2:3:5:1, okay? But now they've created this frame within the frame where they've got a nice little square, and all your action is happening inside that frame where these guys are trying to break out of this jail. Super cool. So this shot actually starts with no faces at all. Like, you don't get to see the faces at all. You just see this box in the frame, and then all of a sudden these heads pop in and we see that they're looking down, and then obviously we're gonna shoot the reverse and we're gonna see what's happening. This is a cool frame within a frame where we've got this widescreen of this, this composition where this guy is on the phone and she's listening in. So we have two different frames within the frame. We love it. So many cool things. Oh, I think we're gonna get there. We're gonna get to breaking the rules. So We're breaking the rules. What does that mean? Well, that means we understand that leading lines are important, but what if we threw leading lines across the frame and we just made it like disruptive and jagged? It creates a motion in your audience. It creates an uneasiness. This guy's about to walk across and fall off the edge. And the music is going to help with that as well, but it's the visual leading lines that have broken and are distracting and not normal. This is from, Christopher Nolan does this all the time. This is Inception, and constantly in Inception, the leading lines are pointing this way and then they're pointing that way. It just makes us not know which way is up, which way is down. This is a rule break because it's not in one of our lower fours, but this is a moment where we don't know where to look, and he's lost in this moment. So we see this scene on this train track several times in this movie, and sometimes he has directions. Sometimes he knows exactly where to go. And this scene, he doesn't know where to go, and consequently, as an audience, we don't know where to look. And then this is the King's speech. He's uncomfortable. He doesn't know how to talk. He's nervous, and we throw him off. We don't give him the benefit of being right on that line on any plane. So there's too much headroom, and there's no looking room. It's a total rule break, but it makes us as uncomfortable as him. So those are just some things to think about when you think about composition and framing. Remember, if you have any questions about Panasonic Lumix gear, please talk to Nelson Photo. They're running great deals. The G95 665, the Panasonic GH6 is $1,000 off, I think, for the next month or so for students. So thank you so much. My name is Matthew Sutherland from Panasonic.